Loving God, may the words that I am about to speak and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, and may you use them to guide us along the way. Amen. The holiday season is officially upon us. I know this because I heard Andy Williams sing, "It's the most wonderful time of the year" on the radio the other day, and retailers have announced their Black Friday shopping specials. So, for many people, it's the most wonderful time of the year, but not for everyone. I also heard two other songs recently. One is the loneliest number you'll ever know by Three Dog Night, and Eleanor Rigby sat by the window, and by the Beatles. You remember Eleanor, the woman who lives in a dream, sitting by her window, wearing a face that she keeps in a jar by the door. Who is it for? She knows that one is the loneliest number better than anyone. And for millions of people all around the world, this is not the most wonderful time of the year. This is the loneliest time of the year. Our reading today from Mark's Gospel is heard a lot during stewardship season, which we're, I guess, out of now, but close. The reason's obvious. Imagine making a financial sacrifice like this widow made. But this year, as I reread this familiar passage, my focus moved away from money and onto her, the widow. Who was she? All Mark tells us is that she's a widow. But from that single grain of information, I think we can surmise a lot. She came to the synagogue alone. She knelt alone. She undoubtedly left alone and returned to her home where she will be alone. We have no reason to believe otherwise. She was someone who fully understands that one is the loneliest number also. Didn't matter what else was going on around her. She only knew that she was alone and that she was lonely. And to be honest, quite likely, no one cared. It was simply regarded as the plight of the widow or the orphan or the physically or mentally challenged person. But fortunately, today, many people are beginning to see loneliness in a different light. We're beginning to recognize the effect of loneliness on an individual's body and mind. And there is a growing consensus that it is the nation's #1 health crisis, more deadly even than obesity or smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Now, everyone is lonely sometimes. After the loss of a loved one, perhaps, maybe moving to a new area, far away from where you used to live. Most of us can work our way through these kinds of situations. But there are millions of people who don't. They are the ones suffering from chronic loneliness. Chronic loneliness. A debilitating psychological condition characterized by a deep sense of emptiness, unworthiness, lack of control, and personal threat. Where is it present? It's present everywhere. There are particular groups, though, that are highly susceptible to it. The very elderly are at high risk. Most of them have lost partners, siblings, close friends. And because of health, mobility issues, they cannot maintain the social activity they once enjoyed. Chronic illness has also skyrocketed among teens and young adults. And most researchers attribute that to their excessive use of social media. They argue that its overuse hinders the development of real-world social skills that we need for close relationships. Military veterans, the men and women that we honor this weekend, very often suffer from chronic loneliness caused by the loss of brotherhood, the tight bonds that were formed as they shared a mission and sacrificed with others, which is in sharp contrast with our independent, isolated civilian society. One of the most fundamental anchors of human activity is work. And those who are unemployed, underemployed, or concerned about their future employment form another large group of chronically lonely people. The nature of our work is at the beginning of a staggering level of cultural disruption. And it's happening swifter and more radically than our nation's transformation from a rural agricultural nation to an urban industrial nation. People need to be needed, and work can fill that void. But analysts tell us that 50% of all the jobs that exist today could be automated with existing technology. Those types of changes exhilarate the educated and the socially nimble. But the threat of that kind of change scares the hell out of those who are seeing their work identities erased and their communities disappearing. As a result, they often band together to angrily air their grievances. They feel abandoned and forgotten. They feel alone and lonely. I've mentioned 4 groups that are highly susceptible to chronic loneliness. But the insidious thing about this disease, and it is a disease, is it can affect anyone. Men, women, single people, married people, young, old. It doesn't discriminate. There's an enormous amount of irony in all of this, I think. Here we are, a hyper-connected society with all types of social media websites, and yet we're discovering that we are increasingly disconnected. There was a time in the not-too-distant past, when I was growing up, for example, granted that was 50, 60, 60-some years ago, but it was a time when most Americans were able to fill their imaginations with the same thing. For example, there was a good chance that on any particular Sunday evening, 70% of the country was going to be tuned in to I Love Lucy and ready to laugh and have a good time, quite often with their neighbors, because not everyone had a TV set. Today we have over 500 cable stations And it is rare that more than 1% of TV viewers are ever tuned into the same program, unless it happens to be Super Bowl Sunday, the World Series, or election night. Over the last quarter century, surveys show that the number of times Americans entertained in their homes has declined almost 50%. These are signs that as a nation, we have fewer non-virtual friends than ever. A Pew survey indicates that the typical American checks their smartphone every 4.3 minutes. And those 18 to 29 are online almost every waking moment. We have become addicted to distraction and parched for genuine community. And there's no easy, quick cure for chronic loneliness. But there are things that can be done to help sufferers feel, and it's really all about feelings, better. For example, don't be afraid to strike up a conversation with a stranger. Small talk isn't really so small. Even a 30-second chat as you're standing in the checkout line can make us and someone else happier and healthier. Don't let care facilities frighten you either. Go visit someone you know lives there. You might even consider asking them to join you in the common room and include some strangers, some people that you don't know, in the conversation or the activity you're doing with them. Get to know your neighbors. Bake an extra dozen cookies, especially this time of the year, and share them. Don't just leave them on the front porch. Share them, invite yourself in, sit down with them, eat some together over a cup of coffee or tea. And as you chat, offer to feed their cat if they're going away on vacation, or to bring in the mail. You'll all be happier and healthier. And use Facebook for something other than sharing selfies that you took on vacation. The world is really not interested in your smiling face all the time. Instead, try forming an online book club with some of your friends, where you can share meaningful personal reactions with a group of people. Invite someone to dinner. Eating together is a form of social glue. Look at how often Jesus is described sitting down and eating with others. And encourage others to talk about their feelings. And then listen to them. Listen to that elderly person. Listen to that teen. Listen to that veteran. Listen to that person who was concerned about their lack of employment. Listen to them without making judgments. Just listen. Every one of these things is a Christ-like activity that we can do to enhance our own lives and the lives of others. So even though the holiday season may not seem like the most wonderful time of the year to a lot of people, if we make the effort, we can still make it a little less lonely for ourselves and for others. Amen.